good evening. Just a quick one really. I was driving back from Woking after my jobs in London today, and I heard that the new government are going to start releasing people at the 40% mark of their prison sentence. Yes, I would say I'm slightly surprised. I think I said in my videos about this, or video about this, that I didn't think it would probably happen. It looks like it is. And the news report I heard on the radio said that thousands would be released. I guess that's true technically, but it won't be all on the same day. People will still be released at their 40% mark when they reach it. I don't know how quickly this will sort of come into action, but I guess it could be quite soon. It's desperate, really. There's obviously a real crisis with bed space in prisons at the moment, and I touched on this in the last video, that it's always been hovering in the background all the time I was away, and that started 21 years ago. So that's really why I was leaning more towards it won't actually happen, because it's always been talked about. But I think I did say that if it does happen, then it's a real signal that things are really bad. And let me just add to that, I had a text message from a friend today who is an ex-prison officer. She has been long out of the system, so she's legally perfectly entitled to communicate with an ex-prisoner. And she said that from what she hears, things are really, really bad. We're talking about Swaleside particularly, but I've known for the last 10 years through the half a dozen or so jails that I was in that things were bad, and they're getting worse. There's a death in Swaleside on average every 2 weeks. I don't know the cause of the deaths, but likely most of them won't be natural causes. So read into that what you want. So going back to the whole release thing, I guess there are people in prison now who have already reached or are about to reach their 40% mark. It will remain to be seen whether the government make the whole thing retrospective or not. If they do, then they are going to have a backlog of people who are technically, once that's signed off, technically they're being held illegally, although no one could ever bring a case over it, because this is a big kind of legal matter, and it's a Home Office matter. So yeah, I know from experience that there will be lots of people going, I should be fucking let out, you're holding me illegally. It won't make any difference to the outcome. They'll get out when they get out. But I guess to a very small extent I can understand the frustration there, but I never succumbed to any of that when I was away. Everything for me was, it will happen. You can't put a definitive timescale to it, but it will happen. And I very, very rarely got frustrated about that kind of thing inside. There was a time on my second sentence where things were so bad with staff in Highdown that we weren't getting let out for our visits, and that was the one thing that I came close to snapping over. That I remember one time in particular, By the time they let me out of my cell, bear in mind visits are generally 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I got out of my cell about 2:45, unlocked. I then had to wait at the fucking wing gate for half an hour to be let off to go to the visits hall. I finally sat down with my visitors, probably my daughter and her mum, at 3:25, and they finished the visits at 3:45. Yeah, that would make most people's blood boil, and it did make mine. But as is always my kind of MO, or was, I very, very rarely let them see that I was fucking raging, because you can look at it like maybe in a superficial way that I didn't want them to see that I was fucking raging and get the satisfaction, but I never really bought into that kind of thing. That happens, but only with individuals, I think, not with groups of screws. It depends on their kind of their personalities as human beings, as people. So but yeah, let's get back to the point again. So 40%, if it's done retrospectively, then yes, there's going to be quite a lot of people released quite quickly. How the fucking probation service are ever going to cope with it, I have no idea. But I don't suppose the general public will hear a lot about that kind of stuff. It's not newsworthy, really. No one particularly cares about those bodies of people in that sense. They choose to do what they do, but probation, yeah, it is bang under pressure, like all of our sort of public services, and that's just going to put a little bit more of a squeeze on them. Prisons, like I said before, people will be released, the spaces will be filled instantly. I think when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, or about to become, the drum was being banged quite hard about loads of spaces being created by the new supermax jails and blah blah blah. Actually, as it turns out, I don't know how many have been made now, but they only, I think on average, they only hold about 1,700 people. That's the operational capacity. Not it is more than the biggest, but some of the bigger jails that I've been in have 1,350. So it's, you know, they've spent billions on these jails, and then it hasn't even put a dent in the bigger problem. So I'm not saying I know what the answer is, because I don't, but I don't know. Look, politicians, they're just people at the end of the day. They might have a bigger stream of ideas, a bigger output, but it doesn't mean the output is worth much. I think I don't want to get into politics, but it always struck me that more money is spent on the think tanks and the quangos coming up with stuff than is actually spent on the projects themselves. I might be wrong about that. It's just I don't pay that much attention to it all, but I know they spend a lot of money on groups of people talking about shit for 3 and 4 years before anything's ever done. So there you go. That's the world we live in. Have a good Friday evening, Saturday morning. See you soon.